Good morning, Metalheads Internet. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. And today we're looking at the latest album from Toronto death metal fucking monsters Tomb Mold, entitled Planetary Clairvoyance. This is the band's third studio album and their first since the massive success of Manner of Infinite Forms, a record that many ranked as one of their favorite albums of the year. It's easy to see why. It's incredibly well written, it's incredibly well performed, it's gruesome but surprisingly really smart. It's an interesting blend of old school death metal and Finnish death metal and Canadian death metal influences. It's complex and powerful and violent and everything that I think we expect from all the great death metal bands combined into one convenient, sickly package. Like, don't get me wrong, they've done other great work. They've been kicking around in the underground death metal scene for a while, but let's be real here. I think it's safe to say that not a lot of us would know about them had it not been for Manner of Infinite Forms. I mean, that's at least how I came to know them. I mean, they're from my neck of the woods, and yet I had never heard of them until I had received boatloads of requests to take a look at that album, which I initially and frankly foolishly dismissed as being just another underground brutal death metal record. It's gonna be a bunch of slams and shit and gross vocals and who gives a fuck. But the end of the year suddenly came and new releases were slowing down and I was still receiving requests to take a look at this album, so I did via the first ever Albums I Missed video that I did at the end of December. And to my surprise, it was all the things that I said before, and I enjoyed it so much that I ended up buying this record a couple weeks later, and this whole thing basically kickstarted the entire Albums I Missed series that I now have going on here on the Metal Meltdown. So, yeah, mad fucking respect. Admittedly, it does help that they're from Toronto. I mean, y'all should know me by now. I cannot help but throw some love out there for any band from my neck of the woods. I can't do it. I gotta support y'all. I gotta help y'all any way I can. So with all those things in mind, I was very excited to listen to Planetary Clairvoyance and very excited to tell you all that it has met and exceeded all of my expectations for the record. Everything that we enjoyed last year from Manner of Infinite Forms remains intact on this album. The mix of death metal influences from across the death metal spectrum, the chaotic, winding, complex instrumentation, the surprisingly really smart songwriting, the still simplistic and violent death metal energy that permeates above all of that gets your fucking blood pumping and your head banging. That all still remains, and now it's more refined than ever before, it's better articulated than ever before, it's better presented and produced than ever before. And then there's, of course, the sci-fi horror aesthetic that paints the entire record and almost turns it into a concept album in its most intelligent moments, resulting in not only one of the strongest death metal albums of the year, but in my opinion, Tomb Mold's best album to date. And I feel so strongly about everything that I just said that I'm just going to state right now that if opening track Beg for Life does not convince you of everything I've just said, then you're just going to have to put this album down, put it to the side, and say that it just ain't for you, because there's no arguing how fucking filthy this thing is. It's foreboding and ominous as the track draws away on mid-paced, murky death metal riffs, occasionally delving into more dynamic and energetic little sections, but never taking away from the initial atmosphere, the fogginess, the swampiness of this whole thing, culminating eventually in a very simplistic but insanely effective barrage of death metal riffs near the end of the track, transitioning very nicely into title track Planetary Clairvoyance, another highlight of the record, which definitely picks up the pace but doesn't compromise the eerie experimental nature that Tomb Mold have thus far established. In fact, if anything, this is really where we start to see them delve into some more Canadian death metal influences. I hear stuff here from Gore Guts, but filtered through Finnish death metal and modern underground metal. It convulses, it twists, and it turns, but never feels overbearing or overwhelming or overcomplicated. And that actually never changes even as the album grows more ambitious and continues to evolve. Take, for instance, on the two-part smacker, Phosphorus Ultimate and Infinite Resurrection, the former of which starts things off really ominous in the vein of Beg for Life, but relies on soft-plucked acoustic guitars and ambient soundscapes. It creates a really powerful contrast too as it transitions into Infinite Resurrection, which feels a little groovier. It's got some palm-muted riffs and some interesting blast beats that kind of feels like a union of Bolt Thrower and Incantation, as Angry Metal Guy pointed out. And following track Accelerative Phenomena follows a very similar, disgusting, groove-laden death metal path in the vein of Bolt Thrower, with some of the most dynamic riffs and patterns I would say on the record. I really like the way it shifts and bounces without ever losing you in the mix. You're still really engaged, and it's still simplistic enough that you can still follow what's happening. And Jesus, need I even mention the surprisingly cathartic finale of Heat Death, a track that was clearly engineered from the get-go to be the final track on this thing, and Tumult take advantage of that by injecting it with this almost doom-death kind of melodrama, more ominous soundscapes, more foreboding riffs, more gross vocals, more disgusting guitars. It's powerful, it's brutal, it's a real hell of a showstopper. And I can't really think of any other death metal band that has very clearly spent this much time figuring out how the flow of the album should work, how it should begin, and how it should end. Thank God for it, though, because it makes for an incredibly enjoyable and easy-flowing ride, which is something I can't say for even the best death metal sometimes. Honestly, I have no complaints or criticisms for this album whatsoever, not even in the vocal department. Normally, I would dismiss this kind of vocal style as being the stereotypical Cookie Monster guttural, and I'd leave it at that. But I don't know. I mean, vocalist Max Klebanoff, he sounds powerful. He fits everything that's going on. He sounds like a fucking monster vomiting over this ghastly mixture. Sure, the style itself is not inherently very original or unique, but the execution, it's there, man. It fucking works. And he pulls this off while doing double duty on drums, too. That's fucking badass as shit. I give this thing a 4.5 out of 5, man. This is an incredible record and honestly a breath of fresh air in the world of death metal. Like, honestly, someone personally sends me a shitty fucking death metal album every fucking day. Just a collection of blast beats and noisy vocals and death metal cliches and stereotypes. I don't fucking care, man. I don't care how brutal something is. I care about the fucking songwriting. I care about the performances. I care about originality. I care about a fresh perspective. And Tumult has clearly been listening to me because they've brought all of that to the table on this record, expanding on the successes of Manner of Infinite Forms, challenging themselves to refine the death metal sound without straying too far outside it, without sounding like a different band, without compromising what I think a lot of people expect from this genre. Everything is more refined, everything sounds better. I mean that literally. I mean, sure, this is still a very grisly sound mix, but it's also weirdly quite polished. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't sound like a collection of fucking death metal tapes thrown onto an LP. It really does feel very professional. Now that might have to do with Arthur Rizk, mind you, who has made a name for himself this past year producing some of the finest death metal from the likes of Outer Heaven, Venom Prison. I think he's even worked with Code Orange on the Forever record. This is a guy who knows his fucking shit, to say the least. I mean, sure, he also produced that Pissgrave record, but I'm literally the only person that doesn't seem to like Pissgrave, so I'll just let that slide. The point is, if you love death metal and you're looking for really fucking great, fresh, unique death metal that doesn't stray too much from the classic sound, still gives you everything you're looking for, this is it. This is what you've been dreaming of. And if you're brand new to death metal as well, check this out. I mean, there's a really cool smorgasbord-like collection of influences and concepts and sound aesthetics that displays everything that so much of us love about death metal without submitting to the cliches and the tropes and all of the stereotypes of the genre. Honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This album is so fucking good that it makes a lot of other death metal I've heard so far this year kind of look like shit. Like, y'all need to up your fucking game, because Tumult clearly isn't slowing down. They're clearly going to keep progressing and keep evolving, not as brutal guitar players, but as musicians and songwriters, and thank fucking God for it. So there you have it, 4.5 out of 5, seriously killer death metal from a seriously killer band from a seriously killer city. All y'all need to step your fucking game up, because Toronto's got fucking Tumult. Fuck you, bitch. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.